On the Arctic frontier, at the border between the mountains and the wastes beyond, lies Castle Tharganon. The Skull God ruled his domain for centuries from his blackened throne, but 20 years have passed since his armies were routed, and the castle lies abandoned, filled with unclaimed riches. Yet death still lurks in the shadows of these ruins as an ancient doom arises from the depths of this place. That is the premise of the third and final volume of Gods of the Forbidden North from Pulp Hummock Press, and I'll share my review right after this. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Today, I'll be sharing my review of Gods of the Forbidden North Volume 3 from Pulp Hummock Press. This is written by Robert Alderman, Chris Cotgrove, and Mark Alderman Jr. The 608-page hardcover with PDF is available now. Carries an MSRP of $72.99 over at DriveThruRPG. If you want to grab this in soft cover, you can do so with PDF for $64.99. And of course, if you want to just score the PDF alone, you can do so for $29.99. Having said all that, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got the third and final volume of Gods of the Forbidden North. A few things to mention before we get stuck in. First of all, my friends over at Pulp Hummock Press were kind enough to provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this review with you. It's important you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of this massive tome, but I do want to give you a really good feel for what you're going to find inside. And then, of course, this is an adventure. So this is the finale to the Gods of the Forbidden North campaign. So if you're a player and your game master has picked up volume 3, they just maybe haven't started running it yet. Maybe they've been talking about picking this up. Keep in mind, I am going to stay relatively spoiler free throughout this. But as I flip through the book, you're probably going to see some things inside which might ruin some of the surprises. So I just want to let you know that right up front. Of course, if your GM has been kicking around picking this up, let them know about this review. That way they can approach Volume 3 of Gods of the Forbidden North and make a far more informed buying decision. First thing we're going to do is take a peek at the credits page. A lot of folks worked very hard to bring this to life, so let's give credit where credit is due. If you're not familiar with Gods of the Forbidden North, it is a huge adventure campaign designed for old school essentials, advanced fantasy from Necrotic Gnome and Exalted Funeral. And I will say, I am not going out on a limb by telling you this, but you are never going to find a bigger campaign for old school essentials, advanced fantasy. Because if you take all 3 volumes, add them together, Gods of the Forbidden North clocks in at over 1,600 pages. It is a staggering achievement, I must say. So this is designed for 6 to 8 characters, starting at levels 9. So of course, if your players have been experiencing the entire campaign from the beginning, of course, they did start off as first level characters. If they encounter everything in these various different volumes, you're looking at over 2 million experience points each. Just want to mention that. Now, of course, I also want to point out that it might be difficult getting 6 to 8 players around your game table. So keep in mind, you need 6 to 8 characters. So you can easily utilize hirelings, henchmen, have your players take on the roles of more than one character. You don't necessarily need to have 6 to 8 players at your table. This campaign does take place in an Arctic region, the Forbidden North. And I have to say, one of the things I really love about this campaign is that it doesn't just rehash Norse mythology or the pantheon of Norse gods, which is what we see a lot of times in adventures where they're in the frozen north, right? They always got to have Vikings and Norse mythology. That's not necessarily the case here. And I really do appreciate that a ton. Now, the first 2 volumes I have reviewed and really, really impressed by them. In fact, each of those volumes did make appearances on my favorite role-playing game releases of the year videos when they came out. And really got to say that, keep in mind, this is mostly the work of one person. Not completely the work of one person, but the writing is mainly one person. So that is an incredible achievement, at least in my book. Now, as far as the campaign itself, this is very old school in flavor. And I love that because I appreciate running an adventure where my players aren't just expecting everything to be a combat encounter. Now, I enjoy combat in my game sessions like everybody else. I just don't want them to be my entire game session. And throughout the campaign, throughout all 3 volumes, there has been loads of interactivity. There have been various different factions. We've got all these different options as far as maybe utilizing stealth or negotiation, diplomacy, parlaying, maybe just being able to completely avoid an encounter altogether. Because once again, this is an old school campaign. So every single encounter is not going to be balanced for the level of the characters who are taking part. And that, I mean, is a tenet of the old school. So definitely love that. Now, this is for Old School Essentials, Advanced Fantasy. So you must have those 2 tomes and able to utilize Gods of the Forbidden North. And it's also recommended that you own the previous 2 volumes as well. And I have to say, could you get away with just running this as like a higher level adventure campaign without those volumes? Sort of. You would really have to replace just an absolute ton of various different creatures and NPCs and such, because we have bestiaries in all 3 volumes, and there are some various different creatures and entities reappearing in the 3rd volume. So you don't get those stat blocks in the bestiary. You'll have information saying, okay, well, refer to volume 1 or volume 2. So keep that in mind. But in a pinch, could a game master get away with running this without the first 2 volumes? Yes. Now, funny enough, the first 2 volumes I've had people refer to as mega dungeons. I haven't seen it that way. I've seen this as a mega adventure. I mean, there have been a lot of different locations, a lot of opportunities for sandbox play, there's hex crawl. There have also been aspects that were more adventure path in nature also. So keep that in mind. The first 2 volumes, I didn't really see a mega dungeon aspect. Now, of course, I've said that, and volume 3, most of the page space is devoted to a mega dungeon, which is fine. I like mega dungeons. My take on mega dungeons are usually that players don't finish them. Campaigns don't normally finish mega dungeons on average. I'm not saying that nobody ever does. I'm sure there are plenty of players and game masters out there who have completed mega dungeons, but most of the page space is devoted to the mega dungeon, which features Castle Thar Ganon and different levels, as well as different towers, different areas surrounding the castle, the ruins of the castle. I have to also point out that each area, in a way, is kind of self-contained. So if you do want to take an adventure path sort of approach, which we kind of saw in the first two volumes, here this is a bit more sandbox in nature than those first two volumes, which is cool. But if you want to take more of an adventure path approach, each of the levels, each of the areas does correspond to a particular character level. So that is available to you as well. So something else that I dig with this volume here is we've got the mega dungeon, the castle of the skull god, and then we also return to the underworld. So we have the underworld where the player characters are going to encounter an ancient and lost civilization, which I really, really dug that a lot. Let's talk about the production quality here, because as far as the paper stock, it's a pretty solid weight here. To my knowledge, this is printed by DriveThruRPG, and they've done a nice job. I should point out, this is not a stitched binding. It is a glued binding, but there is the gap, because with this page count, if it was glued to the cover, that usually turns into a problem. But I will mention, I can't tell you how well this is going to hold up to a lot of repeated use at your game table. I think you should be okay if you don't abuse this. I would say that the book will take care of you if you take care of it. But once again, it is not a stitched binding. As far as the artwork throughout, very, very solid, very reminiscent of what you would find in early releases from Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. There is no real uniformity to the artwork, which is fine. Some of the artwork's really good, and then some of the artwork's a little cartoonish. Doesn't look like it really fits in, but I didn't run across anything where I thought, oh my gosh, this is awful by any stretch. We will have a lot of information in our appendices. We'll get into our bestiary, as I had pointed out. Here's an example, the Barrow Creeper. Like I said, you're not going to get the stat block in volume 3. You have to go to the volume that it originally appears. So this is volume 1. Of course, there are also entities from Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy. So you would actually be utilizing those stat blocks. But there's just an incredible number of creatures that are included in this campaign. Just kind of mind-blowing in its way. I do wish there was more artwork for the bestiary section, though. And that was the case that we found in the other volumes, too. As a whole, though, I do want to say it felt like there was a good amount more artwork in volume 3 than in the previous volumes. So I definitely dig that. Got various different magic items. We've got different rules. So we have additional rules for Old School Essentials that have appeared throughout the various different volumes of this campaign. We'll get into names. We've got a massive index. And then we will get a notes section, as well as a character sheet right there. So we've got our own Gods of the Forbidden North character sheet. There is also a shout out to the Kickstarter backers as well. So that is a peek inside Gods of the Forbidden North. Let's swing on over to the other camera so I can share some final thoughts as well as my review score. So as far as production quality, once again, very, very good there. I'm a little concerned with that glued binding, but once again, it's not, at least it's not glued to the cover. So there is that. But the rest, artwork, very solid throughout. There are some really cool pieces of artwork in volume 3 of Gods of the Forbidden North. And all in all, very nicely done. I love the fact that this is an old school adventure, and there are a lot of opportunities for your players and their characters to take various different approaches to the challenges that they run across. This is not just simply go to a location, kill something, take its treasure, maybe get a clue, and move on. No, not at all. Now, the first two volumes of this campaign tended to be a little more linear, not terribly so, but a little bit. I did find this to be a little more of a sandbox approach, which is great. But once again, if you do want to take an adventure path sort of approach to things, you can certainly do that as well. Something I want to point out, and this is present in all three volumes of Gods of the Forbidden North, and that is the possibility that game masters out there see these and think, oh my gosh, that is just overwhelming. There's too much content here. And I'm telling you, there is tons and tons of content, but don't let that scare you away from this adventure campaign, especially looking at what's out there for old school essentials advanced fantasy, because you are never honestly going to find another campaign of this length, of this depth out there for OSC advanced fantasy. A lot of times when I review a game book, especially if it's an adventure book, I'll mention, hey, you know what? There's years of gaming content located in this book. Tell you what, with this campaign, it's very possible you might have a lifetime of gaming content at your fingertips. There's that much here, but do not allow it to overwhelm you. If you want, just take a peek, read through it, find the things that really appeal to you, that you think your players are really going to enjoy, and go from there. You don't necessarily have to run every single thing you're going to find in these volumes. Yes, of course, the player characters could end up with over 2 million experience points, but they don't have to. So keep that in mind. Don't miss out on an excellent adventure campaign simply because you're afraid that there just might be too much to it. I also appreciate the fact that this isn't our just typical frozen Arctic North and Vikings and Norse mythology and so forth. Definitely dig that. I love how we have a fully developed underworld as well as the overworld aspects of the campaign. So that is also really nice too. Gotta say, I am super impressed by the finale to Gods of the Forbidden North. And if you enjoy really meaty, old school styled adventure campaigns, you are going to absolutely love this. Last thing I want to mention, if you are very familiar with Old School Essentials and Old School Essentials Advanced Fantasy Adventures, this is not presented in that style because the OSC adventures tend to be really streamlined and really just to the point, sentence here, sentence there, bullet points, so forth. Sure, we get the bullet points. We also get information about how a game master can describe various different areas to their players, but you are going to find a lot more text throughout than you would find in, say, a Necrotic Gnome Old School Essentials sort of adventure campaign. Just want to point that out. There's a lot of reading ahead, but it is very entertaining and very inspirational for game masters out there as well. So, on a scale of 0 to 10, I give the third and final volume of Gods of the Forbidden North a 9 out of 10. That is it for this time out. If you enjoy the Gaming Gang and would like to support the outlet, you can do so in a few ways. First, by utilizing our affiliate links to the One Bookshelf sites, such as DriveThruRPG. And to do so, simply visit thegaminggang.com, click on one of our banner ads, and if you happen to make a purchase, I get a 5% commission on most sales. And all those commissions really do add up, help keep thegaminggang.com around. You can also make a one-time donation by way of PayPal and become a monthly member of our Patreon. You'll find links in the show notes. Also, down in those show notes, you're going to find an invite link to our Discord server. It's absolutely free to sign up, so be sure to hang with the gang over on Discord. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. If you ring the bell, be sure to select all notifications, because that'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this review, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central, as I bring you the latest in tabletop role-playing game news and more. And of course, when you're not watching videos here on the channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are never going to find here on YouTube. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Thank you very much for watching. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.